I was sleeping in my car in a Walmart parking lot in Ohio when I saw her for the first time. Brenda. Tall, lean, with arms that looked like they could break concrete. She was doing push-ups in the snow at 5 in the morning like a mad woman. And I remember thinking, this girl is either crazy or running from something just like me. I didn't know then that she would save my life. I didn't know that 3 years later, we would own a gym worth millions of dollars. But most importantly, I didn't know that the night before I met her, I had made a decision to end everything. I had written the note. I had picked the bridge. I was done with America. Done with the hustle. Done with the lies they told us back home in Nigeria about this so-called land of opportunity. They said the streets were paved with gold. They lied. The streets were paved with broken dreams, empty stomachs, and young men like me who left home with hope and returned in caskets. Or worse, never returned at all. My name is Eric, and this is the story of how America almost destroyed me, and how one strange encounter with a girl doing push-ups in the snow changed everything. I left Lagos on a cold January morning in 2018. I was 22 years old, fresh out of university with a degree in mechanical engineering that was worth nothing in Nigeria. No jobs. No connections. No future. My father looked at me the morning I was leaving and he said, "Eric, go and make us proud. Go to America and become somebody." Those words weighed on me like chains. My mother packed jollof rice in a container for me, crying, telling me to call her every day. My younger siblings looked at me like I was a superhero about to fly away and save the world. My younger brother, Emeka, who was 15 at the time, pulled me aside and whispered, "When you make it big in America, don't forget us. Send for me too." My sister, Chioma, gave me a small Bible and said, "Keep this with you. God will protect you." The pressure was crushing. I wasn't just leaving for myself. I was carrying the hopes and dreams of my entire family on my shoulders. My father had borrowed money to pay for my ticket. My mother had sold some of her jewelry to give me money for my first few weeks in America. My uncle had called in favors to get me the student visa that would allow me entry. I couldn't fail. Failure was not an option. The flight from Lagos to New York was the longest journey of my life. Not because of the hours, but because with every mile we traveled away from home, the reality of what I was doing became heavier. I was leaving everything I knew. Everyone I loved. The familiar streets of Lagos, the sound of pidgin English, the smell of suya roasting on street corners, the comfort of my mother's cooking. I was trading all of that for the unknown. For a country I had only seen in movies. For a dream that might not even exist. When the plane landed at JFK Airport in New York, I felt a strange mix of excitement and terror. I had made it to America. But now what? I had to connect to another flight to Salt Lake City, Utah, where my distant cousin lived. As I walked through that massive airport, surrounded by people speaking English with accents I could barely understand, I felt small. Invisible. Like I didn't belong. I arrived in Utah first, staying with a distant cousin who had promised to help me find work. His name was Chukwudi, but everyone called him Chuck now. He had been in America for 5 years and had fully adapted to the American way of life. He spoke with an American accent, ate American food, and barely talked about Nigeria anymore. He lived in a small apartment in Salt Lake City with 4 other Nigerian men, all of them hustling, all of them tired. The apartment was supposed to be a 2-bedroom, but they had converted the living room into a 3rd bedroom with curtains as dividers. There was 1 bathroom for 6 grown men. The kitchen was tiny and always smelled like a mixture of different foods cooking at once. Chuck gave me a mattress on the floor in the living room area. He said, "This is temporary, Eric. Just until you get on your feet. In America, nobody helps you for free. You have to hustle." Those words should have been my first warning sign. Within a week, Chuck got me a job at a meatpacking plant on the outskirts of Salt Lake City. The pay was $9 an hour. $9 to stand in a freezing room for 12 hours, cutting meat until my hands bled through the gloves, breathing in chemicals that burned my lungs. This was not the America I had dreamed about. This was not the land of opportunity my father had spoken about with such reverence. This was a cold, brutal place where human beings were treated like machines. The work was backbreaking. We would start at 6 in the morning and finish at 6 in the evening. Sometimes later if there was a big order. We got 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch break. That was it. The supervisors were mostly white American men who looked at us immigrant workers with disgust. They would shout orders, never say please or thank you, and if you worked too slowly, they would threaten to fire you. There were no unions. No workers' rights. No one to complain to. If you didn't like the job, there were 10 other desperate immigrants waiting to take your place. But I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was building something. I was saving money. I was getting American work experience. Soon I would find a better job, an engineering job, something worthy of my degree. I sent money home every month, small amounts, $200 here, $300 there. And I lied to my parents about how well I was doing, how great America was, how successful I had become. I couldn't let them know the truth. I couldn't break their hearts. I couldn't let them know that their son, the one they had invested everything in, was working like a slave in a freezing meatpacking plant, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, sharing a bathroom with 5 other men. My mother would call me every Sunday morning, her time. Eric, how is America? Are you eating well? Have you found a good job with your engineering degree? And I would lie. I would tell her I was working with a construction company as an engineer. I would tell her I had my own apartment. I would tell her everything was going well. And she would be so happy, so proud, telling all the neighbors about her son who was succeeding in America. After 6 months in Utah, the plant shut down. Just like that, we all lost our jobs. The company filed for bankruptcy and closed overnight. No notice. No severance pay. Nothing. We showed up for work one Monday morning and found the gates locked with a sign that said, "Closed until further notice." That further notice never came. Chuck said I couldn't stay with him anymore. Too many mouths to feed, not enough space. He said, "Eric, you're a man now. You need to find your own way." I understood. I wasn't angry at him. He had helped me as much as he could. So I packed my bag, the same bag I had brought from Nigeria, and I took a Greyhound bus to Illinois. Someone at the meatpacking plant had told me there was work in Chicago, construction jobs, good money. Another lie. I found work carrying bags of cement on construction sites. Cash payments. No contracts. No rights. If you got injured, they left you on the street. I saw it happen to a Mexican man who fell from a ladder and broke his leg. The bone was sticking out of his skin, and the man was screaming in pain. The foreman came over, looked at him, and said, "Get him out of here. Clean up the blood." Just like that. No ambulance. No concern. Just annoyance that the work had been interrupted. We, the other workers, carried the man to the hospital ourselves. We never saw him again. I lived in a basement with 8 other men. We shared 2 mattresses on the floor. The room smelled like sweat and regret. There were no windows, just a small opening near the ceiling that let in a tiny bit of light during the day. At night, it was pitch black. The landlord charged each of us $200 a month for this hellhole. We had no choice but to pay. Where else would we go? At night, I could hear some of the men crying. Grown men, crying in the dark, whispering prayers, begging God to help them. One man, a Ghanaian named Kwame, would pray every night in his language, sometimes for hours. His voice would crack with emotion, and you could feel his desperation in the darkness. Another man, from El Salvador, would call his family back home and lie to them just like I lied to mine. He would tell his wife everything was fine, that he was saving money to send for her and their children. But I knew the truth. He was barely surviving, sending every dollar he earned back home, leaving himself with nothing. I wanted to cry too, but I was too proud. Too ashamed. I was supposed to be the success story. The university graduate. The engineer. The one who made it. How could I cry? How could I admit defeat? After 1 year in Chicago, I had saved about $3,000. It wasn't much, but it was something. I had been living on less than $5 a day, eating mostly bread, instant noodles, and whatever cheap food I could find at dollar stores. I stopped going to the barber shop, cutting my own hair with a clipper I bought from Walmart. I wore the same 3 outfits over and over, washing them by hand in the basement sink. I stopped calling home because I couldn't afford to buy phone credit, and I couldn't bear to lie to my mother anymore. A friend, another Nigerian I had met on the construction site, told me to go to California. He said, "Eric, that's where the real opportunities are. Los Angeles. Silicon Valley. Tech jobs. You have an engineering degree, you can make it there. Chicago is for people with no education. You're wasting your potential here." His words gave me hope again. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had been in the wrong places. Maybe California was where I would finally find my breakthrough. So I bought another bus ticket, and I traveled across the country with hope rising in my chest again like a foolish bird that refuses to learn. Los Angeles broke me in ways Chicago never could. The city was beautiful, yes, with palm trees and sunshine and beaches that looked like postcards. But beneath all that beauty was a cruelty I had never experienced before. The rent was so high that I couldn't afford even a single room. A studio apartment in a decent neighborhood cost at least $1,500 a month. I had $3,000 in savings. That would last me 2 months if I spent it all on rent. Then what? I would be back to zero. So I made a decision. I would sleep in my car and use my savings to survive while I looked for work. I bought a beat-up Honda Civic for $800 from a Mexican man who needed money fast. The car was old, the air conditioning didn't work, and it made strange noises when I drove, but it ran. And most importantly, it became my home. I parked in many places every night, trying not to get caught by police. Walmart parking lots, residential streets, church parking lots, anywhere I thought I could sleep for a few hours without being bothered. Sometimes security guards would knock on my window and tell me to move. Sometimes police would shine their flashlights into my car and ask me questions. "What are you doing here? Do you have an address? Are you on drugs?" I would explain that I was just tired, that I was looking for work, that I would leave soon. Most times they let me go with a warning. Sometimes they told me if they saw me again, they would arrest me for vagrancy. I showered at a 24-hour gym that charged $10 a month. It was the cheapest membership I could find. The gym was old and dirty, but it had hot water and that was all I needed. I would go there at odd hours, usually late at night or very early in the morning when nobody else was there, and I would shower and wash my clothes in the sink. The gym staff knew I was homeless. They could tell by the way I carried my belongings with me, by the way I spent too much time in the bathroom, by the desperate look in my eyes. But they never said anything. Maybe they felt sorry for me. Maybe they had their own struggles and understood. I ate 1 meal a day, usually rice and beans from a Mexican food truck. $5 for a plate that would fill my stomach enough to last until the next day. Sometimes I would go to food banks and get free food, canned goods and bread mostly. I had no shame anymore. Pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. I applied for jobs every single day. Engineering positions, technician roles, anything related to my field. I would go to public libraries and use their computers to send out applications. I sent out over 200 applications in 3 months. I created an email address that sounded professional. I printed out my resume on good paper. I practiced interview questions in the mirror. I did everything the career advice websites told me to do. You know how many responses I got? 5 out of over 200 applications. And all 5 rejected me after the interview. They said I didn't have American work experience. They said my accent was too thick. They said I wasn't a cultural fit. One interviewer told me directly, "We're looking for someone who better understands American culture and communication styles." What they really meant was, "We don't want you here. We don't want a Nigerian immigrant with a foreign accent working in our office." I started doing Uber to survive. I signed up as a driver, And at least the car I had bought was still working well enough to pass their inspection. Driving strangers around Los Angeles, smiling, pretending everything was fine, listening to them complain about problems that seemed so small compared to mine. A woman once cried in my car because her boyfriend forgot their anniversary. I wanted to tell her, "Madam, I haven't spoken to my own family in 3 months because I'm too ashamed to tell them I'm living in my car." But I just nodded and said, "Sorry to hear that," and drove her to her destination. She tipped me $3. One night, a drunk man threw up in my back seat. Vomit everywhere, on the seats, on the floor mats, soaking into the fabric. The smell was unbearable. The cleaning cost me $150, money I didn't have but had to pay because Uber would deactivate my account if I didn't clean the car properly. I sat in that parking lot after paying the cleaner, and I screamed. I screamed until my throat hurt. I screamed until I had no voice left. And then I just sat there in silence, staring at nothing, wondering how my life had become this. How had I fallen so far? What had I done wrong? Why was God punishing me? But it got worse. I got sick. Some kind of infection from sleeping in the cold, from not eating properly, from stress eating away at my body like rust on metal. I had a fever that wouldn't go away, my body ached, I was coughing so hard I thought my lungs would come out. But I had no health insurance. I couldn't afford to see a doctor. Finally, when I couldn't take it anymore, I went to a free clinic in downtown LA. I waited 7 hours to see a doctor. 7 hours sitting in a crowded waiting room with other desperate people, other poor people, other immigrants and homeless individuals who had nowhere else to go. When I finally saw the doctor, a tired-looking woman who barely made eye contact, she examined me for maybe 5 minutes. She said I had bronchitis and a secondary infection. She gave me antibiotics and told me to rest, drink plenty of fluids, and come back if it got worse. Rest. How do you rest when you're living in a car? How do you rest when every day is a battle just to survive? I wanted to ask her these questions, but I could see she was overwhelmed, moving on to the next patient, the next sick person in line. So I took my antibiotics and left. I moved to San Francisco next, thinking tech jobs would be easier to find there. Another mistake. The city was even more expensive than Los Angeles. It was the most expensive city in America, and I, a homeless man living in his car, thought I could somehow make it there. The level of delusion I had at that point amazes me when I look back. I met other Nigerians there, other Africans, all of us chasing the same dream, all of us struggling in different ways. Some had turned to fraud, Yahoo, scamming people online just to survive. They tried to recruit me. One guy, a Yoruba man from Ibadan named Tund, took me to a small apartment where he and 3 other guys were running their operation. They showed me how they did it. Creating fake profiles on dating websites, pretending to be American soldiers stationed overseas, sweet-talking lonely women, building trust over weeks or months, then asking for money. Just $500 to fix my car so I can come see you. Just $1,000 to pay for my flight home. The women would send the money, and these guys would disappear. Tun said, "Eric, I know you're suffering. I can see it in your face. I can smell it on your clothes. You're living in your car, right? I've been there. I know what it's like. But you don't have to live like that. Join us. In 1 month, you can make $5,000. Maybe more if you're good at it. Nobody gets hurt. These are rich American women who have more money than they know what to do with. We're just redistributing the wealth." I was tempted. God knows I was tempted. $5,000 would change my life. I could rent an apartment. I could buy decent clothes. I could eat properly. I could call my mother and actually tell her the truth and have money to send home. But something in me refused. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear of getting caught and deported. Maybe it was the last piece of my dignity holding on, refusing to let me become a criminal. I told Tun no. He shook his head and said, "You'll be back. When you get hungry enough, when you get desperate enough, you'll be back. They all come back." I left California and drifted through Arizona, then Texas, then finally Ohio. By this point, I had been in America for almost 3 years and I had nothing to show for it. Nothing. My savings were gone. My car was falling apart. The engine was making noises that sounded like it was dying. The tires were bald. The battery barely held a charge. My body was breaking down. I had lost so much weight that my clothes hung off me like they were 3 sizes too big. I looked sick. I looked homeless. Because I was. And my spirit was completely crushed. I had tried everything. I had worked hard. I had applied to hundreds of jobs. I had moved to different cities. I had done everything I was supposed to do. But nothing worked. America had rejected me at every turn. I was in Columbus, Ohio, sleeping in that Walmart parking lot, when I made the decision to end it all. I had stopped calling home months ago. My phone had been disconnected because I couldn't pay the bill. I didn't even know if my family was okay, if they were worried about me, if they were trying to reach me. I imagined my mother worrying, praying for me, wondering why her son had stopped calling. I imagined my father angry, disappointed, telling people his son had gone to America and become a failure. I imagined my siblings telling their friends, "We don't know what happened to our brother. He went to America and disappeared." I had failed them all. I had failed myself. What was the point of continuing? I wrote a note on a piece of paper I found in my glove compartment. My handwriting was shaky, barely legible, but I wrote it anyway. "I'm sorry." I tried. America was a lie. Tell my family I loved them. Tell them I didn't mean to fail them. Tell them I'm sorry. I planned to drive to a bridge I had seen on the highway, a tall bridge over a river, and just jump. Simple. Quick. Over. No more pain. No more shame. No more struggling. Just peace. Finally peace. But that morning, before I could do it, before I could start my car and drive to that bridge, I woke up to a strange sound. Tap, tap, tap. Someone was knocking on my car window. I looked up and saw her. Brenda. This tall, athletic woman with short hair and the most intense eyes I had ever seen. She was wearing workout clothes in the middle of winter, a sports bra and leggings, steam coming from her mouth as she breathed in the cold air. Her arms were muscular, defined, powerful. She had been doing push-ups in the snow. "Who does push-ups in the snow at 5 in the morning?" she said. "Hey, you okay in there?" I rolled down my window, confused, tired, ready to tell her to leave me alone. My voice was hoarse when I spoke. "I'm fine. Just sleeping." She looked at me with those intense eyes, and I could tell she didn't believe me. She said, "I've seen you parked here for 3 days. You look like you're going through something. You want some coffee?" I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I was just too tired to say no. Maybe God was giving me one last chance, and I was too broken to refuse it. Maybe I just wanted one last conversation with another human being before I ended everything. She said, "There's a diner across the street. Come on." My treat. We walked across the parking lot to a small diner that was open 24 hours. The warmth hit me as soon as we walked in, and I realized how cold I had been. How long had I been cold? Weeks? Months? I couldn't remember the last time I felt warm. She ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted. Eggs, bacon, pancakes, hash browns, orange juice, coffee. When the food arrived, I ate like a man who hadn't seen food in weeks, because I almost hadn't. I shoveled the food into my mouth, barely chewing, barely tasting, just filling the emptiness inside me. She didn't ask me questions at first. She just watched me eat. Then she said, "I used to live in my car too. 2 years ago. After I left my ex-husband. He beat me so badly one night that I thought I was going to die. Broke 3 of my ribs, fractured my jaw, gave me a concussion. So I took my daughter and I ran. No money. No plan. Just survival. I understand what you're going through. I've been there." I looked at her and for the first time in years, I felt seen. She understood. She knew what rock bottom looked like because she had been there too. This strong woman, who looked like she could fight off 10 men, had been broken just like me. We talked for hours. The sun came up outside the diner windows, and we just sat there talking. I told her everything. Nigeria, my family, the pressure to succeed, the jobs, the disappointments, the cities, the struggle, the shame. And I told her about the note in my car. About the bridge. About my plan to end it all that very morning. She listened without judgment. She didn't tell me I was being selfish. She didn't tell me to just pray about it. She didn't give me empty platitudes. She just listened. And when I finished talking, when I had poured out all my pain and shame and failure, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that changed my life. She said, "Eric, you didn't come all this way just to die in a Walmart parking lot. You survived for a reason. I don't know what that reason is yet, but you survived. You're still here. That means something. You just have to figure out what comes next." Brenda was a personal trainer. She worked at a cheap gym in Columbus, training clients for $15 an hour, barely making enough to pay rent and take care of her daughter. But she had a dream. She wanted to open her own gym, a place that focused on helping people who had been broken by life, people like us. She said, "I don't want a fancy gym for rich people who already have everything. I want a gym for fighters. For survivors. For people who need to rebuild themselves from the ground up." I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. But I had hands that could build. I had an engineering degree that was finally useful for something. She had some savings, about $5,000 she had been putting aside for 2 years. I told her, "If you trust me, I can help you build this gym. I can design it, wire it, fix it up. I know construction. I've been working construction for 3 years." She looked at me for a long moment. I could see her weighing the risk. Trusting a homeless man she had just met. A man who had been planning to kill himself that morning. But then she said, "Okay. Let's do it." We found an abandoned warehouse on the east side of Columbus. The rent was cheap, only $1,000 a month, because the place was falling apart. Broken windows, cracked floors, water damage on the ceiling, no heating, no proper electricity, graffiti on the walls. But we saw potential. Where others saw trash, we saw treasure. Where others saw impossibility, we saw a second chance. We worked on that building for 6 months, just the two of us. Every day, from sunrise to sunset. I fixed the electrical wiring, using knowledge from my engineering degree and skills I had picked up on construction sites. I repaired the floors, patched the cracks, reinforced the weak spots. I installed new windows that Brenda found at a salvage yard. I painted the walls, covering up the graffiti with fresh white paint. Brenda designed the layout, figured out where each piece of equipment would go, how the space would flow. She bought used equipment from gyms that were closing down, negotiated prices, hauled everything in a borrowed truck. We slept in that warehouse while we worked on it. Brenda brought her daughter, a sweet 7-year-old girl named Maya, and we made a small living space in the back corner with curtains for privacy. We cooked on a hot plate. We showered at the gym where Brenda worked. We lived like refugees, but we were building something. For the first time in 3 years, I had purpose. I had hope. We opened the gym in March 2021. We called it Second Chance Fitness. The name was Brenda's idea, and it was perfect. Because that's what we were both getting. A second chance at life. Our first week, only 3 people showed up. 3. After 6 months of hard work, after $5,000 invested, after blood and sweat and tears, only 3 people came. I thought we had failed. I thought it was over before it even started. But Brenda said, 3 is better than 0. Let's give them the best training experience they've ever had. Let's show them what second chances look like. So we did. We trained those 3 people like they were elite athletes. We encouraged them. We celebrated their progress. We made them feel important. And they told their friends. And their friends told their friends. Word spread slowly, like a whisper turning into a conversation turning into a shout. We offered free classes to homeless people, to immigrants, to single mothers, to anyone who needed a place to feel strong again. We didn't care if they couldn't pay. We understood poverty. We understood struggle. We just wanted to help. And people came. Not because we had the best equipment, but because we understood their pain. We knew what it felt like to be counted out, to be told you weren't good enough, to feel like giving up. The gym grew. Month by month, more people joined. 6 months after opening, we had 50 members. 1 year later, we had 200. Brenda and I worked 16-hour days, training people, cleaning equipment, managing finances, marketing, everything. But we didn't mind. We were building something beautiful from broken pieces. We hired other trainers, people with stories like ours. A former drug addict named Marcus who had turned his life around and found purpose in fitness. A war veteran named James who had PTSD and found peace in weightlifting. A teenage girl named Ashley who had been bullied her whole life and discovered confidence through boxing. Each trainer brought their own story, their own pain, their own transformation. And that's what made Second Chance Fitness different. We weren't just a gym. We were a community. A family. A home for the broken. By 2023, we had 3 locations across Ohio: Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. We were making real money, good money. Our annual revenue was over $2 million. Brenda and I became business partners, equal owners, 50-50 split on everything. We never became romantic. Our bond was deeper than that. We were survivors who had found each other at the exact moment we both needed saving. She was my sister in every way that mattered. I moved out of my car, obviously. I rented a small apartment near the main gym in Columbus. It wasn't fancy, just a 1-bedroom with basic furniture, but it was mine. I had a bed. I had a kitchen. I had a shower. I had a home. Simple things that most people take for granted felt like miracles to me. I started sending money home to Nigeria. Real money this time. Not the small amounts I used to send while lying about my success, but substantial amounts. I sent money for my younger brother's university tuition. I sent money to help my sister start a small business. I sent money to my mother so she could fix the roof of our house that had been leaking for years. And when they asked me how I was doing, I could finally tell them the truth. I told them about living in my car, about the struggle, about Brenda, about the gym. My mother cried on the phone. She said, "Eric, I wish you had told us. We would have understood. We just wanted you to be alive." Today, I'm 30 years old. I finally went back home to Nigeria last year for the first time since I left in 2018. 7 years away from home. 7 years of transformation. When I walked into the arrival hall at Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos, I saw my family waiting for me and I broke down. I cried like a baby right there in the airport, not caring who was watching. My parents didn't recognize me at first. I had gained weight, built muscle, grown a beard. But more than that, I carried myself differently. I wasn't the scared, desperate boy who left 7 years ago. I was a man who had survived hell and built something beautiful from the ashes. My father hugged me and cried. This strong man who never showed emotion, who always told me to be tough, was sobbing on my shoulder. My mother kept touching my face like she couldn't believe I was real. My siblings, both grown now, wanted to hear all my stories. And I told them the truth this time. All of it. The struggle, the pain, the nights in the car, the moment I almost gave up. I told them about Brenda and the gym, and how we built an empire from nothing. I showed them pictures, videos, articles that had been written about Second Chance Fitness in local Ohio newspapers. My father looked at me, tears still in his eyes, and said, "Son, I'm proud of you. Not because you succeeded, but because you didn't quit. You fell down many times, but you kept getting back up. That's what makes you a man." But here's what I haven't told anyone until now. Not my family in Nigeria. Not my business partners. Not even the members of our gym who see me as some kind of inspiration. Last month, Brenda called me at 3 in the morning. Her voice was shaking. At first I thought something was wrong with her daughter, some kind of emergency. But it wasn't that. She said, "Eric, I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago. That morning I found you in the Walmart parking lot. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't random. I had been planning to kill myself that same day. I was going to do it right there in that parking lot. I had pills in my pocket. My ex-husband had been calling me, threatening to take my daughter away, and I felt like I had no fight left in me. But then I saw you, this man sleeping in his car, looking so broken, so lost. And something told me to check on you first. Just talk to someone one last time before I ended it. Saving you saved me. Do you understand? We saved each other." I sat there in silence, phone pressed to my ear, tears running down my face. All this time, I thought she had rescued me. I thought I was the weak one, the broken one, the one who needed saving. But the truth was, we had rescued each other. Two broken people who found each other at the exact moment they both needed a reason to live. She continued, "That's why I agreed to start the business with you. That's why I trusted a homeless man I just met. Because I saw in you what I was feeling. The desperation. The hopelessness. The edge of giving up. And I thought, if we can save each other, maybe we can save other people too." I finally found my voice and said, "You never told me this." She said, "I was ashamed. Just like you were ashamed to tell your family the truth about living in your car. We all carry shame about our lowest moments. But I'm telling you now because I want you to know, you didn't just build a gym. You saved a life. Mine. And I saved yours. And together, we've created a place where hundreds of other people are saving their own lives. The American dream is not what they tell you it is back home. It's not easy money and big houses and fancy cars. That's the lie they sell to desperate people in developing countries. The lie that keeps people like me buying plane tickets to a country that doesn't want them. The real American dream is survival. It's finding purpose in your pain. It's meeting people who understand your struggle and building something together. It's learning that success is not about how much money you make, but about how many times you get back up after life knocks you down. It's about discovering that the worst day of your life can become the doorway to your greatest transformation if you just hold on a little longer. I think about that morning in the Walmart parking lot all the time. I think about how close I came to ending everything. How close Brenda came to ending everything. What if she hadn't knocked on my window? What if I had ignored her? What if I had driven to that bridge an hour earlier? What if she had taken those pills before she saw me? The timing had to be perfect. Divine. Because 5 minutes earlier or later, and we would have both been dead. 2 more statistics. 2 more immigrants who couldn't handle the pressure. 2 more people crushed by the weight of broken dreams. But instead, we're here. We're alive. We're thriving. And we're helping other people find their second chances. Let me tell you about some of the people who have come through the doors of Second Chance Fitness. Because their stories are just as important as mine and Brenda's. They're the reason we do this work. There's Marcus, the former drug addict I mentioned earlier. He came to us in 2021, fresh out of rehab, looking for something to fill the void that drugs had left in his life. He had been addicted to heroin for 8 years. Lost his job, lost his family, lost his home, lost everything. He had overdosed 3 times, been declared clinically dead twice, and somehow survived. When he walked into our gym, he weighed 130 pounds, skin and bones, hollow eyes, shaking hands. He said, "I need something to live for. Can you help me?" Brenda and I trained him personally for the first 6 months. We taught him how to lift weights, how to push through pain, how to rebuild not just his body but his mind. We taught him that every rep, every set, every workout was proof that he was stronger than his addiction. And slowly, month by month, Marcus transformed. He gained muscle. He gained confidence. He gained purpose. Today, Marcus weighs 190 pounds of solid muscle. He's been clean for 3 years. He's one of our most popular trainers, specializing in helping other people overcome addiction through fitness. He's married now, has a daughter, owns his own home. And he tells everyone who asks that the gym saved his life. There's James, the war veteran with PTSD. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan, saw things no human being should see, came home broken in ways that weren't visible on the outside. He couldn't sleep at night. He couldn't be in crowds. Loud noises sent him into panic attacks. He had tried therapy, tried medication, tried everything the VA offered him. Nothing worked. He was planning to commit suicide when a friend dragged him to our gym. Literally dragged him, because James didn't want to go. He didn't want to be around people. He didn't want to try anymore. But something about lifting weights spoke to him. The physical strain, the focus required, the measurable progress. For 1 hour a day, when he was under the barbell, his mind went quiet. The demons stopped screaming. The memories stopped replaying. It was just him and the weight, and nothing else existed. James started coming every day. Then twice a day. Lifting became his therapy, his medication, his salvation. He's been training with us for 2 years now. He still has hard days when the PTSD flares up, but he has tools now. He has community. He has purpose. And he's helping other veterans who walk through our doors carrying the same invisible wounds. There's Ashley, the bullied teenager who found herself through boxing. She was 16 when she first came to us, brought by her desperate mother who didn't know how else to help her daughter. Ashley had been bullied since middle school for being overweight. Kids called her names, posted cruel comments on social media, made her life hell. She had tried to commit suicide twice. She was depressed, anxious, barely going to school anymore. Her mother said, "Please, can you help my daughter? I don't know what else to do." Brenda started training Ashley in boxing. Not to make her a fighter, but to give her an outlet for all the rage and pain she was carrying. To teach her that her body was strong, not shameful. That she could hit back, even if it was just hitting a heavy bag. Ashley fell in love with boxing. She trained 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. She lost weight, but more importantly, she found her confidence. She found her voice. She learned to stand up for herself. Today, Ashley is 19. She's studying to become a social worker, specializing in helping other teenagers who are struggling with bullying and self-esteem. She still trains at our gym, and she volunteers to mentor young girls who remind her of herself. She told me once, "This gym didn't just save my life. It gave me a reason to want to live." These are just 3 stories out of hundreds. Every person who walks through our doors has a story. Every person is fighting a battle that nobody else can see. And that's what makes Second Chance Fitness special. We see them. We understand them. We meet them where they are, not where we think they should be. By 2024, we were facing a new challenge. Success. Which sounds like a good problem to have, and it is, but it comes with its own pressures and complications. We had expanded to 3 cities, and people were asking us to open locations in other states. We were getting calls from investors who wanted to buy into the business, franchise opportunities, media coverage. The local news did a story about us. Then a national fitness magazine. Then a podcast. Suddenly, Second Chance Fitness wasn't just a small gym in Columbus. It was becoming a brand. Brenda and I had to make some serious decisions. Do we keep it small and personal, the way we started? Or do we expand and potentially help more people, but risk losing the intimacy and the mission that made us special? We argued about it. Long, difficult conversations where we both had valid points and neither of us knew the right answer. I wanted to expand. I saw the potential to help thousands of people across the country, maybe even internationally. I saw the financial opportunity to create generational wealth, not just for us, but for the trainers who worked with us, for the communities we served. I had spent 3 years living in poverty in America. I knew what it felt like to have nothing. And now that I had something, I wanted to protect it, grow it, secure it. But Brenda was hesitant. She said, "Eric, I'm afraid we'll lose what makes us special. Big gyms with corporate structures and franchise agreements, they don't have soul. They don't have community. They're just businesses trying to make money. That's not who we are. We're here to save lives, not to get rich. I understood her concern. I shared it. But I also knew that we couldn't help everyone if we stayed small. We had a waiting list at all 3 locations. People who wanted to join, but we couldn't accommodate them because we were at capacity. We were turning away the very people we were created to serve. We eventually reached a compromise. We would expand, but slowly and carefully. We would open 1 new location per year, and each location would have to meet our standards. It couldn't just be about profit. It had to maintain the culture, the mission, the heart of what Second Chance Fitness was about. Every trainer we hired would have to have a story, a struggle, a reason for wanting to help others beyond just earning a paycheck. Every location would offer free or discounted memberships to people who couldn't afford full price. And we would never, ever franchise. We would own and operate every location ourselves to maintain quality control. In early 2024, we opened our 4th location in Detroit, Michigan. It was our biggest facility yet, 10,000 square feet in a renovated warehouse in a low-income neighborhood. We hired 8 trainers, all of them with stories of overcoming adversity. We offered free youth programs for kids in the neighborhood. We partnered with local organizations that worked with homeless populations, addiction recovery centers, mental health clinics, veteran support groups. We wanted the gym to be more than just a place to work out. We wanted it to be a community center, a safe haven, a beacon of hope in a struggling neighborhood. The Detroit location was a massive success. Within 6 months, we had over 500 members. The local news covered our opening. The mayor came and did a photo op, praising us for investing in the community. Other businesses in the area told us that our presence had sparked a revitalization of the neighborhood. Property values were going up. Other businesses were moving in. Crime was going down. All because we had created a place where people felt valued, where they could work on becoming better versions of themselves. But with success came scrutiny. And that's when things got complicated. In the summer of 2024, we received a letter from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE. They wanted to verify my immigration status and work authorization. My heart stopped when I saw that letter. After 6 years in America, after building a successful business, after creating jobs and helping hundreds of people, they were questioning whether I had the right to be here. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being an immigrant in America. You're never really safe. You're never really secure. No matter how much money you make, no matter how many people you help, no matter how much you contribute to society, you're always one letter away from deportation. You're always one investigation away from losing everything you've built. I had entered the country on a student visa back in 2018. That visa had long since expired. I had applied for a work visa through an immigration lawyer in 2019, but the application had been denied because I wasn't sponsored by an employer. I had applied for asylum, claiming economic hardship in Nigeria, but that application was still pending, stuck in the massive backlog of the immigration system. Technically, I was in the country illegally. I was what they call an overstay. And if ICE decided to enforce the law, I could be detained and deported at any time. I was terrified. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even Brenda. I just carried that letter in my pocket like a weight, rereading it over and over, trying to figure out what to do. I consulted with immigration lawyers. They all told me the same thing. My case was complicated. I had been out of status for too long. My business ownership actually made things more complicated, not less, because it showed I had been working without authorization. The best case scenario was that I could apply for a different type of visa, but it would require me to leave the country and reapply from Nigeria, with no guarantee of being allowed back in. The worst case scenario was deportation with a 10-year ban from re-entering the United States. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was right back to where I had been in that Walmart parking lot, feeling hopeless and trapped with no good options. After a week of carrying this burden alone, I finally told Brenda. We were in her office after everyone had left for the night, and I just broke down. I showed her the letter and I said, I might have to leave. They might deport me. And if that happens, I'll lose everything. The business, the gym, everything we built. Brenda didn't panic. She just looked at me with those intense eyes and said, "We'll figure it out. We didn't survive everything we survived just to give up now." She hired the best immigration lawyer in Ohio, a woman named Sarah Chin who specialized in complex cases. Sarah reviewed my situation and gave me the harsh truth. She said, "Eric, your case is difficult, but not impossible. The fact that you own a legitimate business that employs people and serves the community works in your favor. The fact that you have no criminal record works in your favor. But the fact that you've been out of status for so long works against you. We need to be strategic." Sarah filed several motions on my behalf. She applied for a U visa, which is for victims of crime who have assisted law enforcement. She argued that I qualified because I had reported labor violations at the meatpacking plant in Utah years ago. She applied for a T visa, for victims of human trafficking, arguing that some of the construction work I did in Chicago qualified as forced labor. She applied for humanitarian parole. She threw everything at the wall, hoping something would stick. While we waited for responses, which could take months or even years, we had to figure out how to protect the business if I was deported. Brenda and I restructured the ownership. We created a trust that would allow the business to continue operating even if I was removed from the country. We trained our management team to handle operations without me. We documented every process, every system, every decision-making framework. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The stress was killing me. I started having panic attacks, something I had never experienced before. I would be in the middle of training a client, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. My heart would race. My vision would blur. I would have to excuse myself and hide in the bathroom until it passed. I was having nightmares about ICE agents coming to arrest me, about being thrown in a detention center, about being deported back to Nigeria as a failure after all I had accomplished. Brenda insisted I see a therapist. She said, "Eric, you've been through trauma. Living in your car, almost committing suicide, now this immigration stress. You need professional help." I resisted at first. In Nigerian culture, therapy is not something we talk about. Mental health is not something we prioritize. You're supposed to just pray about it, be strong, push through. But Brenda wouldn't let it go. She said, "You tell our gym members all the time that asking for help is strength, not weakness. Practice what you preach." So I started seeing a therapist, a Nigerian woman named Dr. Amaka who understood the cultural context of my struggle. She helped me process the trauma of the past 6 years. She taught me coping mechanisms for the anxiety. She helped me understand that my worth wasn't tied to my immigration status or my business success. She helped me remember who I was before all of this, the young man from Lagos with dreams and potential, not defined by American bureaucracy or capitalist metrics of success. After 4 months of legal battling, paperwork, interviews, and waiting, Sarah called me with news. The U visa had been approved. I was being granted legal status in the United States based on my cooperation with labor law enforcement years ago. I could stay. I could work legally. I could continue building the business. And in 3 years I could apply for a green card. I cried when she told me. Right there on the phone, I cried like a baby. 6 years of fear, 6 years of looking over my shoulder, 6 years of living in legal limbo, it was over. I was legal. I was safe. I could breathe again. I called my mother in Nigeria and told her. She started praying and praising God so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She said, "Eric, God has been with you all along. Even when you wanted to give up, He had a plan. Even when you were sleeping in your car, He had a plan. Trust Him." And maybe she was right. Maybe there was a divine plan in all of this. Maybe I had to go through hell to appreciate heaven. Maybe I had to lose everything to understand what truly mattered. Maybe I had to meet Brenda at the exact moment when we both needed each other most. Maybe all of it, the pain and the struggle and the fear, was necessary to create the person I am today and the business we built. Remember this. Your lowest moment might be the doorway to your greatest breakthrough. And sometimes, the person you're meant to save is also the person who's meant to save you. That morning in the Walmart parking lot, 2 lives changed forever. Mine and Brenda's. And now, our gym helps hundreds of people change theirs. That's the real dream. That's what makes it all worth it. So if you're out there struggling, if you're thinking about giving up, if you're sleeping in your car or crying in the dark, hold on. Just hold on a little longer. Your Brenda is coming. Your second chance is coming. And when it arrives, you'll understand why you had to go through everything you went through to get there. But I also want to be honest about something else. The American dream, as it's sold to people in developing countries, is a lie. They tell you that America is a land of opportunity where anyone can make it if they just work hard enough. They don't tell you about the systemic barriers. They don't tell you about the discrimination. They don't tell you about the immigration system that treats human beings like criminals for trying to survive. They don't tell you that you can have a university degree and still end up working in a meatpacking plant. They don't tell you that you can do everything right and still fail. I don't want to discourage anyone from pursuing their dreams. But I want people to have realistic expectations. If you're thinking about coming to America, know that it will be harder than you think. Know that you will face rejection and discrimination. Know that your degree from your home country might not matter here. Know that you might have to start from zero, or even from negative. Know that you will cry yourself to sleep some nights, questioning every decision you made. Know that you will be tempted to give up. But also know this. If you survive, if you persist, if you find your purpose and your people, you can build something beautiful. Not the American dream they advertise, but your own dream. Your own definition of success. Your own measure of what matters. For me, success is not the 3 gym locations or the $2 million in revenue. Success is the fact that I'm alive when I almost wasn't. Success is the fact that I found a sister in Brenda when I thought I was completely alone. Success is the fact that every day, people walk into our gym broken and walk out a little bit stronger. Success is the fact that my family back in Nigeria is proud of me, not because I'm rich, but because I didn't give up. Success is the fact that I can look at myself in the mirror and respect the man looking back. This is Eric, and this is my story. The one I almost didn't live to tell. The story of a young man from Lagos who thought he could conquer America and instead was almost conquered by it. The story of 3 years of hell that led to a moment of grace in a Walmart parking lot. The story of 2 broken people who saved each other, and then created a space where hundreds of others could save themselves. If you take nothing else from this story, take this: you are stronger than you think. You can survive more than you believe. And you never know how close you are to your breakthrough. I was 1 day away from suicide when I met Brenda. 1 day. If I had driven to that bridge the night before instead of waiting until morning, if Brenda had taken those pills an hour earlier, either of us would be here. But we waited. We held on. And everything changed. So hold on. Whatever you're going through, whatever impossible situation you're facing, hold on. Your story isn't over. Your breakthrough is coming. Your Brenda is doing push-ups in the snow somewhere, about to knock on your window and offer you coffee. Your second chance is waiting for you on the other side of this pain. And remember, the American dream they sell you is a fantasy. But the dream you build yourself, from broken pieces and second chances, from pain transformed into purpose, from rock bottom turned into a foundation, that dream is real. That dream is worth fighting for. That dream saved my life. This is Eric. And I'm still here. Still fighting. Still building. Still helping others find their second chances. And I will be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Because I survived. We survived. And that means something. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go write yours.